Kevin Bowen, Colts.com. My headphones cut out there for a second. We're good now. Threw me off for a second, but we're good now.
I wonder what happened to
Kevin
you
Bowen, Colts.com featured writer, joining us now on the Menard Studio Hotline. Of course, you can also find Kevin on Twitter at KBowenColts. So, Kevin, there's a win. We can talk about a win.
It wasn't easy, but it is a win.
I was going to say, however, with that said, how come I don't feel any more confident in this team today?
I don't think you're the only one out there. Yeah, I mean, there are some definite question marks coming out of Sunday that really were question marks coming out of the first 2 weeks of the season. But in the NFL, I mean, a win is a win. Questions do linger, and questions are going to linger about this team probably for a couple more weeks. But 1-2 is a lot better than 0-3. We talked about the figures last week, just from 0-2 teams that make the playoffs versus 0-3 teams, and just how much that dwindles. I think it's only 3 or 4 teams since 1990 have made the playoffs starting 0-3. So it's a lot better, I think, to make corrections coming off a win than it is a loss. So Chuck Pagano, I think, breathed a big sigh of relief, and you saw that emotion out of him. If people have seen kind of the post-game locker room video on Colts.com, you saw how much that win not only meant to him, but I think his team in general.
Well, and I was going to ask you about that. I didn't know if you made the trip down to Tennessee, if you were in the locker room to see it as it happened, or if it was you didn't get a chance to watch it till after the video was made available. But, we talked about it yesterday. All the stories that are coming about whether or not Pagano's going to be there next season, that kind of stuff. And obviously that win was very emotional, not just for him, but for that team. Is there any... I know the players are going to say, no, it's not. It's just they need to play better. Do you think some of that outside, because they're getting asked about it, is that seeping into their minds in any way, shape, or form, that there feels like there's more on the line this season because of all the news that's going around between Pagano and Grigson and the relationship there?
That's a good question. It's just tough to really put your finger on anything because you're exactly right. There were a ton of expectations coming into this season, nationally, really, that weren't there ever since Pagano took over in 2012. And then you couple that with everything that happened between, and all these reports. It seems like, a new national report really comes out each week. I don't know if it's new per se, but just a different national guy, saying each week that there is, a rift or whatever there. I would like to think it's not affecting play, players play on the field. I mean, these are professional athletes, and for a lot of them, they all, they have different stories. And you've got a Frank Gore and Andre Johnson who are coming in the offseason just wanting to win. At this point in their careers, they've put up Canton-like resumes. Now they just want to stamp that with the Super Bowl. And then you got guys like, the Andrew Lucks and T.Y. Hilton who are just blossoming stars. So I don't think so, but the emotion, again, from Pagano in the locker room and even Andrew Luck after the game, I thought, he talked about it, how spent he was. And part of that was it was such an up-and-down game. You get up 14-0, then you're down 27-14, and, things are looking bleak with, I want to say it was 12:20 to go, and you're standing in your own end zone, and you're thinking, wow, is 0-3 about to become a reality? And then it's 3rd and 20 with 7 minutes to go, and now you're thinking, wow, 0-3 could definitely become a reality. And then you're able to come back, you get the goal line stand, etc. So I'm very curious to see now how this team responds after a win. And it does one quarter of football, does that mean more than just one quarter of football, if you will? Because, again, the majority of quarters of football haven't been ideal for this team in 2015. But can that momentum Sunday in Nashville, can that, have a domino effect on this team going forward?
Well, you're around this team a lot, obviously, as the featured writer for the official team website. There's always stories, there's been stories since Chuck Pagano got hired that he is a player's coach. You talk to these guys, how much, what are they, when you ask them about their coach, can you just feel the love they have for this guy?
Yeah, definitely. And it goes to all parts of the locker room. I remember Montori Hughes, who's defensive tackle, who the team cut, I believe, right after the preseason. His baby daughter passed away last year during training camp, and he's told stories about just how frequently Chuck Pagano would reach out to him, and you see it in every light in the locker room, whether it's what Robert Mathis had to deal with last year, or I remember being in my office a couple days ago and just overhearing Chuck Pagano in the hallway talking to a newcomer, being like, if you need anything, blah, 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 let me know. This is how we operate around here. And it's not X's and O's, not, what is out there on the field on Sunday. And I think you see all these comebacks by this whole team. And yes, ideally you would like to play more consistently, get off to some of these better starts. But in the past few years, all these comebacks, I do think there is a little part of that he is such a great, not only, I think, such a great motivator. I think these guys feed off his energy and how much he really tries to get to know these guys. And it's not just a football relationship. And to me, as an NFL head coach, a lot of it is X's and O's, and then a lot of it is trying to motivate these guys for 16 games throughout the season. And some of that can be very difficult because you've got guys, again, from all different backgrounds, 53 guys that you're trying to get to gel together. A lot of different agendas can be in that locker room. And for the most part, and it seems like when you hear guys come in, they talk about it, just how much of a player's coach he is. Ray Lewis, obviously, is a guy that's very close to Chuck Pagano. He's gone out of his way several times to say how much that Ravens defense set off Chuck when he was in Baltimore as well. So I do think there is something real there that these guys do feed off that emotion, and that's, again, why you saw that locker room the way it was on Sunday afternoon.
Talking with Kevin Bowen, a featured writer for Colts.com. It's Ford and O'Brien on ESPN Evansville 105.3 online, ESPNEvansville.com. Kevin, one of the things that Ryan and I kind of discussed last week before the game when we were previewing the game, Andrew Luck, not off to the greatest of starts. There's no doubt about that. But, I mean, even into parts of last season and leading into this year, a lot of turnovers, maybe just forcing the ball sometimes. But, Jay Cutler has turnovers and he becomes the worst quarterback ever to play the game. Everybody just wants to rip him to shreds. And Andrew Luck he's got more turnovers than Jay Cutler had. And nobody, I guess the point I'm trying to get at and the question I'm trying to ask, how long does Andrew Luck keep turning the ball over before people start looking at him differently, or will that happen?
I think it's when he starts having the record that Jay Cutler has.
Okay, winning solves all, yep.
I mean, winning cures all and winning quiets all, and I think that's what Andrew Luck has done in his first three seasons. Yes, the turnovers are there, and they're a glaring reason why the Colts have had to come back so often. But it's one thing just to sit there and have the turnovers and then not come back from them. But yet, this guy has had an ability to so frequently, dating back to that Chiefs game, really, in the playoff comeback back in 2013, that comeback, I think, that's something Andre Johnson even talked about when he wanted to come here in the offseason was, when I saw that kid make those plays in that Kansas City game and come back from that, you can't teach that stuff. So, yes, the turnovers are still a major problem, and they need to be corrected ASAP for this team to not only get back into the playoff picture, but, see some control in the AFC South. So I think when you place him among those other quarterbacks, it's once the losses start mounting, then, yes, that's when I think the turnovers become a real issue. But for now, he's had the ability to overcome those mistakes, but as he so frequently says, you can't expect to continually survive those. And there's been times that they have, 3 straight 11-win seasons speaks to that, but then there's been times in the playoffs, specifically in New England and Pittsburgh last year, where those early turnovers were just too much to overcome.
Well, the other thing that Ron and I were kind of talking about, and we wait till we get somebody on the phone that actually knows what they're talking about, and then we ask them the same questions that we butchered. But Andrew's got a contract coming up. He's going to break the bank. Is there any possibility that Luck just kind of lets the organization know, look, you got to shore up this offensive line, guys, or I'm not sure how long I want to play here. I'm tired of picking myself up off the ground.
That's a very good question. Yeah, I think that's going to be something that when he does end up sitting down for these contract talks, and Jim Irsay has talked about that, maybe in the 2016 off seasons when it will happen, what is the Colts organization going to look like, and what kind of is their game plan mapping out for Andrew Luck going forward? I mean, they've spent a lot of young draft picks. When you look at Jack Mewhort, Hugh Thornton, Khaled Holmes, I mean, they have spent some draft picks on some young offensive linemen. Anthony Costanzo giving him a big deal here before the start of the 2015 season. So I think that is something that is going to be interesting to see how the Colts structure his contract, and then what does that ultimately allow them to do from a financial standpoint to go out there and, okay, we can keep the T.Y. Hiltons, the Dante Moncriefs, the maybe one of the tight end duo of a Dwayne Allen and a Kobe Fleener, and then what do you do up front as well? Because you have the young linemen and Holmes and Thornton and Muhort, and even Costanzo is young to a degree, but now are those the right guys? And I think that's the biggest question facing the Colts, not only now, but like you said, going forward, because Andrew Luck is the franchise.
Kevin Bowen, our guest, Colts.com featured writer. It's Ford and O'Brien, ESPN Evansville 105.3, online, ESPNEvansville.com. A little bit of a shakeup. Speaking of that offensive line, Coach Pagano shuffling a few guys in and out. Todd Hermans doesn't play. I believe it was Lance Lewis was a healthy scratch. Is that right? He was inactive for the game over the weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
Lewis was a little bit banged up, but he did come back and practice on Friday. I think he missed Wednesday's practice last week with a shoulder injury.
Is that, in talking with Coach Pagano, and I think he has his weekly conference on Mondays with reporters, is that the plan? Or what we saw Sunday offensive line-wise, is that the plan moving forward? Or for him, is it just we're going to put the 5 best guys we think can help us win depending on the team they're facing?
Yeah, he didn't confirm yes or no would they keep the same 5 heading into Jacksonville that played against Tennessee. I thought from an offensive line standpoint, you still had your struggles in pass protection, especially early on. It was a totally different story in the fourth quarter. I want to say Andrew Luck was only pressured, I think, like 2 times on his 14 pass attempts in the fourth quarter. So you did some good things from an offensive line standpoint there, and a major reason why you had a 21-point final quarter. Again, you had your struggles early on in the first three quarters. Penalties continue to be an issue, particularly holding penalties. You know, I feel like if you would go back and look at all the yardage that the Colts have amassed that have been, just gone to waste from the holding penalties, it's got to be well into the hundreds here after the first couple of games. I did think the running game looked very, very solid on Sunday. Frank Gore, I think, averaged 6.1 yards per carry, and that is an incredible number for Gore. And really, Andrew Luck has never had a running back amass that per carry amount for a single game. So I think going forward, it's continue to pound Frank Gore, because I think we have seen now in the first couple of weeks when he gets going. I mean, he is still one of the better running backs in the NFL, and the Colts need to establish that because they need to keep the pressure off. They need to force opposing defenses to think, okay, maybe we can't be bringing all this pressure. Maybe we need to respect Frank Gore a little more. So I think that's the biggest thing going forward is if you keep the 5 together, keep pounding Gore, and then the communication and the blocking up front, handling those blitzes has to get better, because this is the NFL. Once the blueprint is out there, these teams are going to keep on attacking Andrew Luck from a pressure standpoint until you prove that you can beat it. So I think the Colts line knows that. If I had to guess, I would say the same 5 is out there again on Sunday, just because I think this 5 maybe has the most talent of any group. But then at the same time, you just cannot have the penalties that you had on Sunday, and it was a big reason why. You dug yourself a 27-14 hole after being up 14-0.
One more for you, Kevin, then we'll let you go. Any truth to the rumors that Luck is dealing with some kind of a rib injury?
He was asked that on Monday, and he didn't. He gave your typical Andrew Luck answer, and I think it was Bob Kravitz who asked Andrew it, and he said, "Do you think I would tell you, Bob, if I was?" or something to the effect. Or I think Bob might have said that in his question, knowing full well that even if Andrew was hurt, he would probably not indicate that. I have no idea, to be honest with you. The injury report will come out tomorrow, so I guess we'll find out at Wednesday's practice, if he's a full participant, if there's anything on there. I can't recall him ever being on the injury report in his now 4th NFL season. I mean, he definitely admitted after the game that was a very taxing game in Tennessee. There's definitely a physical toll that I think, would definitely Andrew Luck took in that game. And he was very upfront and honest about that after the game, and then again on Monday as well. And I just don't think people, the media or fans, have ever seen him like that. I mean, he's just absorbed so many hits in his 4 NFL seasons, and he just always seems to pop right back up, whether he's making a tackle on an interception or he's extending for a first down when he's running the football. So he gave no indication that he was hurt. He did seem in much, much better spirits and a lot more energy on Monday when he met the media versus Sunday right after the game. That's to be expected. So I guess we'll find out Wednesday whether or not there is anything on the injury report. But I would be shocked if Andrew Luck misses any time during practice or in a game.
It's Kevin Bowen, Colts.com featured writer. Find him on Twitter at KBowenColts. Always looking forward to our Tuesday conversations, Kevin, and hopefully we'll be able to talk another win and a 2-2 team when we talk to you next Tuesday afternoon.
Looking forward to it, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.